The sea is every day. The fact that Trieste is a small town, that you say, when I have half an hour, I can go at the shore, swim 10 minutes, and go back to the job. What it wouldn't be possible in other cities, which also have a great sea, like Genoa and so on, but not so immediately closer to everyday life for many months, from end of April almost to the middle of November and so on. And the sea is, first of all, is the feeling, nothing to do with sport, with ability. I hate such things. I'm a good swimmer, but only because I like it. And this harmony with the flowing of life. That's the reason why the sea has a lot to do with love, with this feeling of being, in spite of all, in harmony with the flowing of the sea. And you know, for me, it's unthinkable the love without the sea. It's almost comic, but it's not comic. And my story with Marisa, my wife, who was also a writer, who died 20 years ago, exactly, Teresa, and the sea was not only the landscape, a part, like our house, which is not a place where to sleep or to food. And from this point of view, of course, I love the sea of the great discoveries, adventures, the great literature, and so on. The sea like challenge to the difficulties of life, Joseph Conrad, and so on. But I like more the sea as abandon. When I am laying without pretending anything, only hearing, like now, hearing the sounds, being in this feeling which is so rare in our life, in which we have always something to reach. We hope that the time is passing as soon as possible, that this next week comes as soon as possible. We wait for the results of the election, for the answers of the doctor, and so on. No, at the sea I am like a happy child. And then the sea also a possibility of communication. You know, the Gulf of Trieste has and has not frontiers. Apart, I don't speak of the political problem, because the Italian Sea before the town, then the Slovenian Sea, that you say the sea before the coast, which belongs to Slovenia, and then the Croatian, because I see the Gulf in Trieste, you see, and these frontiers which are not cancelled, but like a play, that has also been very important for me. Also for the feeling of frontier which exists and existed in harder times. Also at the sea, it's not possible to go over a frontier, especially in the time of the Cold War and so on. But this feeling of unity of the life. You know, when my Marisa died on the August 20 years ago, and 1 month and a half before, we spent a beautiful week at the sea shore in Micolašica, in the Kerso, Cres in Croatian, and it was so alive. And at the end she said, we have had our summer in our sea, and that is, I don't know whether that can explain what the sea is for me. But
what do you think the sea means for Europe and for us Europeans?
It's of course Europe. Also, from this point of view, there are great differences between one country, one European country, and another. I am a great European patriot. I dream of the day in which I could be citizen, European citizen. Of course, I am Italian. I am also of Trieste. I speak in Trieste my dialect, but I think the real identity is like we are all, we must feel us as matryoshki, the small Triestine identity, which is nothing against the greater Italian identity, which is nothing against the European identity, and so on. Of course, one of the great differences inside Europa is the great role played from the sea for England is Brexit, also France, Italy, Spain, the Scandinavian countries, so on, and this other Central, Middle Europe, which, in spite of Shakespeare, doesn't have a frontier with the sea. You remember this Böhmen grenzt ans Meer, this the famous translation of Schlegel, I think. But I think the sea is now an unbelievable importance, and sometimes a very difficult or tragic importance, the Mediterranean Sea, because the Mediterranean Sea is now on the one hand a frontier, on the other hand a contact, sometimes with all problems of a contact which countries who have other social situations, political situations. That's the reason why a lot of refugees are coming, and the sea, not only the sea, but especially the sea, is a great way of coming. And I think now perhaps the symbol of the, there are also other difficulties for Europe, economic difficulties and so on, nationalistic, chauvinistic, but the great problem is really this sea, which is now, unfortunately, in some cases perhaps necessary, because once, not yet, but once the number of the refugees could be a real, of course, problem. We must know, even because I am, of course, for the greatest acceptation possible, but we can't ignore the problem. A hospital who has 1,000 beds can receive 2,000, but not 20,000, because it's not a solution. It is, and this for me it's so strange that the Mediterranean is becoming a frontier and not a liquid bridge. Of course, the number of the refugee, of the what is the English word for i dannati della terra, the damned of the earth, is already, but could arrive so great, so that it would be really impossible to accept everybody. But now, even when the problem is not yet so difficult as the ethnic, nationalistic, chauvinistic fears and hates say, that ghost, unfortunately, plays a great role against also European Union to divide between states or countries or the political system which are ready to accept as much as is possible, other which are not only because of the practical difficulties, but because of ideological prejudice and so on. And that is a terrible, and that's the reason why I dream of a European state, because it is real stupid. It's impossible to think that the problem of refugee coming from the sea is only a Spanish or Italian problem. It's a European problem. Otherwise, Renzi could say it is a problem of Sicily because the boats don't arrive in Milano. But now it is this Claudio, you know, this ethnic refusal of others is also the negation and the destruction of one's own, also small identity. I like my Triestine identity. I like my dialect. I speak dialect with my friends and also colleagues because, but not because of ideological reasons. That would be grotesque and that would destroy my small but for me important Triestine identity. You know, this great writer La Capria, who is now very old, said one thing is to be Napolitano, Napolitan. Another thing is fare, to play, to make. It's possible to make Napolitan. And this small, closed, ferocious, racist identities are the parody of its themselves. And that's, Dante had already answered one when he said that he had so long drunk the water of the Arno and he had learned to love Florence. But he added, our country is the world like the sea for the fishes. The two waters are both complementary and necessary.
As you are not only a traveler but a writer, you believe in, let's say, the power of literature. What's the role of literature today in Europe in a time of crisis? Can it help us?
I think literature, art can help, but only indirectly. It is really wrong to believe that a good intellectual writer can understand the reality more than a dentist or that is false. And it's when we can't forget that a lot of the greatest writers of the 20th century have been fascists, Nazis, Stalinian. Pirandello sends a telegram of solidarity to Mussolini after the after the murder of Matteotti. We can understand this auto-humiliating process, but certainly the concierge of Pirandello understood politics better than he. Knut Hamsun, so unbelievable, Céline, the French writers who went pious and religious à la Messe Rouge to attend or death of their comrades who were impiccati, hanged by Stalin, and so on. It's not enough. And I hate, I must say, a certain coquette conscience of one's of belonging to a so-called aristocracy of the spirit, which is it's not. And I refuse to sign every manifest of intellectual about problems when this manifest, which is now with the web absolutely easier, is not given to every citizen who can and will and want to sign. Then later, the signature of Norberto Bobbio can be more significant than my signature. It's true, it's good, it's true, but Norberto Bobbio has one vote in the election, and I have one vote, and the other can what? And that's the apart from that, your question, I think that literature can help a lot, but indirectly, because literature can create, but not immediately. It's not a manifest, not a declaration, but can create a certain feeling of life, of relationships with others, of love, of friendship, which can really contribute enormously to the formation of a person and so that to the situation. I am sure that my attitude towards women, towards people of other nationalities, to a problem is certainly segnato, signed by having read Peace and War, certainly had a great influence of mine. And from this point of view, the help literature can give is great, but indirect and needs a long time. It is like education. When the father says to the son, you mustn't be racist, it's too late. From this point of view, I believe a lot in literature. And I think that great literature can help us also the civilization, even when the ideas are crazy or impossible. Céline is impossible in his thesis, absolutely. But we can learn a lot from Céline concerning love for poor people, for the miserable existence and so on.
So it's not the power of the word against political power or power of religion, but it's about forming a sensibility, forming the person,
forming humanly the personality. From this point of view, it's more or less the same. I owe a lot to a great literature, not only to literature, even the Salgari, who is not a great literature, but Salgari, I have started, is our Karmai. And already with 7 years, I had the feeling that the world is full of different peoples, every with his language, landscape, but like a tree which is constituted by different parts because the leaves are not the flowers, but with the same spirit. And so that, and I owe a lot to my school comrades. Without, it is a wonderful phrase of Gregorius Magnus, no, the Pope. He said that he had not understood the essential aspects of life without his brothers. We can add sisters also.
So last question, how do we get Europe back on track? Via politics, via reading, via school, via education?
But I think, of course, there is a basis of economical aspects, which are, of course, the basis, because a crowd of people who have immediate difficulties of eating, it's terrible. And education, policy must contribute to create a situation a little less terrible. That is the reason. And also I know this politics and the culture. One thing called the culture in the greater meaning of the word contribute is to feel, not only to know, that history has not finished. And this system, good, bad, is not the end, the final condition of the way, because we are all blind conservative concerning our attitude to believe that the present can't change. And that's the reason we must go over such an attitude. I remember, only to finish with the example which is more clear, much clearer than what I can say. In the first days of the first week of November '89, I was in Blois in France. It was a symposium organized by Jack Lang, who was Minister of Culture in France, with some writers and also politicians of the East Europe, of Communist Europe. And in East Berlin, the great protest had already begun. One young Berliner, very involved in this organization, a young regisseur, came to Bra, spoke very moved about what was happening in East Berlin. Then I went back immediately to Berlin to continue to his work. And I'll never forget what he said. It's impossible to say what will happen. Everything is possible. Even a Tiananmen solution could be possible. One thing is unfortunately certain: the wall will last still a lot of years. 3 days later, the wall didn't exist more, and he was one of the protagonists who had contributed to the destruction of the wall. And myself, I had say certainly the wall, because it's very difficult to imagine somebody who in October had said the wall will fall in some weeks. The so-called realists are the less realists. It is necessary also to imagine something over the immediate realism.